Hey guys, my name is Faraz. I'm a second year medical student at the University of Cambridge. In this video, I'm going to be giving you a comprehensive guide to choosing a medical school, especially with the UCAS early application deadline coming very near to you guys. Right. So the first thing I'd look at when looking at medical schools is look at their entry requirements and the standard offers. So for example, Imperial standard offer is about A star AA, whereas Cambridge's is 2 A stars and 1 A. Also look at subject requirements. Some colleges at Cambridge, for example, might require chemistry, and some universities may require chemistry for medicine, whereas others do not. So, now in terms of entry requirements, a general recommendation is to have your predicted grades being 1 grade higher than the standard offer. So let's say you want to apply to Imperial. I'd recommend applying if you have 2 A stars or more in your predicted grades, and if you have less than 1 A star in your predicted, it may be quite risky to apply. Now, on a similar note, the second thing I'd look at is whether the university is a UCAT or a BMAT university. So these are the two medical entrance exams used in the UK. Now, many of you may already know your UCAT score since you've already sat it. So if you have a low UCAT, for example, it would be wise not to apply to a university like King's College, which has high UCAT cutoffs. And I'd use your already known entrance exam score of the UCAT as a good way to filter universities and strategically apply. Now, in terms of the BMAT, I would also be quite realistic about how you expect to do on the BMAT. So for example, if your preparation is going quite well, or you think that you can make significant improvements before the BMAT, then I would say apply to BMAT universities with confidence. My general recommendation, as long as you have a decent UCAT score, is to apply to 2 BMAT and 2 UCAT universities so you have a nice and even spread and don't put all your eggs in one basket. Now, speaking of the BMAT, I have a bit more information for you. If you're looking for an online BMAT video course, head on over to sigmamed.co.uk. It's an online BMAT video course that teaches you the content you need to know, the exam technique you need to use, and goes over more than 30 worked examples to show you how exam technique is applied in the actual exam. It's made by me and my friend Hamza, both of us study at Cambridge, and it costs only £25, which as far as I can see is the most affordable BMAT video course on the market, and also, in my humble opinion, the best. So I would recommend any student who is sitting the BMAT next month to go to sigmamed.co.uk and buy the course. It is an investment into your future, and all of the students we've had so far on the course have been extremely satisfied and reported that it has significantly helped them with their BMAT preparation. So head on over to sigmamed.co.uk to buy your course and help you ace the BMAT like a Sigma. So another thing I would look at with medical schools is first of all whether they offer intercalation. So this is when you choose to do your own subject in the 3rd year, and you're usually awarded with a BSc degree or something equivalent, or a BA degree in the case of Cambridge. So in some universities, so for example Cambridge, this is mandatory. In other universities it may be optional, and it may have some value in your future career, but that may change. I'm not too sure of that. Another thing I'd look at is whether the university offers full body dissection. Now, there's 4 UK medical schools that offer full body dissection. That's Anglia Ruskin University, the University of Cambridge, the University of Leicester, and St Andrews University. This is quite a unique way of learning anatomy, and I've personally been through it. It is certainly a very unique experience at the age of 18 to be able to cut open real bodies. But it's not a necessity, but it may be something you want to consider. The thing I'll tell you to consider is the interview style of the university. So now, assuming your stats are good and hopefully you get an interview with a good personal statement as well, different universities can have very different interview styles. So for example, Imperial usually runs an MMI style interview where you have multiple stations and it consists of multiple small interviews. In contrast, Oxbridge have more traditional style interviews. So it's talking to, say, 1 or 2 professors for like a period of 30 minutes, being asked multiple different questions. So I would personally look at your own strengths and how you think you'll perform in interviews, and perhaps have that in the back of your mind when considering what medical schools you're planning on applying to. Another thing to consider is whether the medical course is traditional or integrated. Now what this means is some medical schools, for the first 3 years, you don't really get much patient contact. Cambridge is like this, Oxford is like this, and as far as I know, UCL is like this. Whereas Imperial is more integrated and you get patient contact from early on. Now, we can argue about the benefits and disadvantages of this all day long, but ultimately it comes down to how do you think you're going to learn well. I'm quite into science, so I quite like the traditional style. So if you're also like that, I would recommend applying to some traditional universities. But as with everything, it's good to have a nice wide variety. Another thing you want to consider is the location and style of the university. So for example, some universities like Imperial, UCL, King's, they're city universities. So the faculty and your accommodation might be a lot more spread out and it may be a bit harder to meet people. Whereas in contrast, a university like Aston University is a campus university, so everything's nice and close together and you may find it more easy to socialise. So this essentially comes down to apply to medical schools that you can actually see yourself going to. So if you apply to a medical school that you absolutely hate the idea of, you hate the idea of living in that city, I would say don't apply to it, because if you end up there and you're going to be unhappy for, remember, this is a 5 to 6 year degree, you may not enjoy it and it may really ruin your experience. So I'd say pick medical schools that you like the location and style of and apply to them. Now, another thing to look at, although it's not very important, is the ranking of the medical schools. Ideally, you don't want to apply to all the most competitive ones, and if you have very good grades, you may want to apply to a few more aspirational ones. So have a nice spread again. Although, the main thing I want to say is the medical school you go to doesn't really matter too much. The main thing is, if you pass medical school, you're going to be a doctor. Now, the last thing I just want to say about Oxbridge is, apply if you want to go there first of all, because it is very different to other medical schools. I can say from my experience, it's really intense and it's a lot more involved in terms of the academic content than quite a lot of other medical schools. We go into a lot of theoretical detail and experimental detail. So if you like that type of thing and you think you have a realistic chance of getting a good BMAT score and you have good stats in general, I'd say apply and see what happens. Thank you for watching and make sure you subscribe.